Good day and thank you for joining us on Beetv Global News at 12. I am Liberateman Johanna. Now the news in details. Residents of our state Tamayang and surrounding areas are facing a growing health crisis after cyclone-driven floods and landslides devastated large parts of Sumatra. The disaster has killed at least 904 people, with 100 more missing, while disease outbreaks are spreading among displaced populations. The report.
Unsanitary conditions in temporary shelters have triggered outbreak of diarrhea, fever, malgia, skin infections, acute respiratory infections, influenza-like illnesses, typhoid, leptospirosis, measles, pertussis, malaria and dengue. Health officials warn that the environments and places of stay have not recovered post-disaster, exacerbating disease risk. Asset Tamayang's regional hospital is nearly paralyzed, with medical equipment covered in mud, critical medicines washed away and ventilators flooded. Across the affected province, 31 hospitals and 156 smaller health centers have been impacted. Medical workers are struggling to provide basic care, with one nurse describing the situation as extraordinary, while tragic deaths, including newborn, have occurred due to equipment failure. Flood-damaged roads and bridges have slowed aid delivery. In some remote areas, medical teams have to reach patients by boat. Military and government teams are working to repair infrastructure and restore health services, with rebuilding and cleaning of hospitals underway. Authorities led by Prabowo Subianto have pledged to repair damaged infrastructure, cancel certain state-backed microloans for affected farmers, and accelerate aid distribution. Local officials have urged Jakarta to declare a national emergency to unlock additional funds and resources. Thousands have lost homes and belongings, living in precarious conditions. The combined effects of displacement, infrastructure damage and limited medical care are raising the risk of further disease outbreak. The crisis highlights the vulnerability of Indonesia's healthcare system to extreme weather events, especially in remote regions. Evelyn is even reporting for Beetv News.
At least 18 migrants lost their lives on Saturday when an inflatable boat carrying them capsized in the Mediterranean Sea south of the Greek island of Crete, Greek authorities confirmed. The boat, reportedly overcrowded, was discovered in a semi-submerged state by a passing Turkish merchant vessel, which immediately alerted the Hellenic Coast Guard. The report.
2 survivors were rescued from the sea and are currently receiving medical attention. The remainder of the passengers are presumed dead, according to officials. Greek authorities launched a large-scale search and rescue operation in response, deploying Coast Guard patrol vessels, aircraft and ships coordinated by the European Border Agency Frontex. Several merchant vessels in the vicinity also participated in the operation. The cause of the capsizing is not yet known. Authorities have not confirmed the nationalities or countries of origin of the migrants. However, such incidents are part of a continuing pattern of dangerous crossings in the Mediterranean, as migrants and refugees attempt to flee conflict, persecution or economic hardship in search of safety and opportunity in Europe. Crete, the largest Greek island in the Mediterranean, has become a frequent route for migrants attempting to reach Europe, with vessels often departing from the coast of Turkey and North Africa. The island's southern waters, in particular, have witnessed multiple tragedies in recent years, highlighting the risk faced by those attempting the perilous journey in overcrowded and poorly equipped boats. The European Union and Greek authorities have repeatedly warned about the dangers of these crossings and called for stronger international cooperation to address the root causes of migration, including conflict, poverty and human trafficking networks that profit from smuggling migrants across the Mediterranean. Humanitarian organizations have expressed deep concern over the incident, emphasizing the urgent need for coordinated rescue operations, safer migration channels, and preventive measures to avoid further loss of life. This latest tragedy underscores the ongoing human cost of irregular migration in the Mediterranean, which remains one of the deadliest migration routes in the world. Greek authorities continue to investigate the incident and are working to identify the victims, while search operations remain ongoing to ensure no one else is missing. The incident has once again drawn attention to the perilous nature of migrant crossings in the region and the persistent challenges faced by authorities in safeguarding human life. From the global scene, I am Soher Osanegi, reporting for Beetv News.
More than 100 residents of Canel gathered on Tuesday to protest the federal immigration enforcement operation underway in the New Orleans metropolitan area. The demonstration came as a federal border agents continued a border immigration crackdown throughout the region. The report.
Protesters assembled near a central intersection in Kenya, holding signs and chanting opposition to the ongoing enforcement action. Organizers said the turnout reflected growing concern among community members about the presence of federal agents and the impact of the raid on immigrant families. Residents at the scene said the enforcement operations, which began earlier in the week, had heightened fear among undocumented individuals and their relatives. Some attendees described the demonstration as a call for federal authorities to halt arrest and prioritize community safety. Federal officials confirmed that the enforcement activity in New Orleans is part of a targeted initiative aimed at individuals with outstanding removal orders or previous immigration violation. However, no additional details were released regarding the number of arrests or the duration of the operation. Local advocacy groups monitoring the situation said they plan to continue organizing events and offering support services to affected families. Meanwhile, residents who participated in the protest stated that they intend to maintain public pressure until federal agents scaled back their presence in the area. The situation remains ongoing as both federal authorities and community groups respond to the latest developments in the immigration enforcement across the New Orleans region. Favor Kolawole reporting for Beetv News.
10,000s of women and some men took to the streets in Brazilian cities on Sunday to protest gender-based violence, demanding an end to femicide, rape and misogyny. The report.
The rallies held in cities such as Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo were driven by public outrage over a wave of high-profile and brutal crimes against women. In Rio, demonstrators laid dozens of black crosses to symbolize victims, while in Sao Paulo and other cities, protesters carried placards demanding enough of femicides and chanted slogans such as "Stop Killing Us." Some of the incidents fueling the protests: a woman killed by a male colleague in Rio in late November, a woman in Sao Paulo who was run over and dragged by her ex-boyfriend, her leg later amputated, and another case in the south of a teacher who was raped and murdered while walking on a beach trail. The scale of violence is stark. Last year, 1,492 women were victims of femicide, the highest number since the crime was criminalized in 2015. Many protesters said the recent crimes were the final straw. Survivors and relatives of victims spoke publicly, calling for changes in legislation and new protocols to prevent such crimes. Experts note that not only the number of incidents is rising, but also their brutality, increasing visibility of women in social and professional spaces, and societal backlash towards gender equality and women's autonomy are seen as contributing factors. During the protest, participants also called on men to join the struggle not only in protest but in everyday life by calling out misogyny. In the capital, Brasilia, a coordinated national demonstration brought together civil society organizations, government ministers, and the country's first lady under the rally name Levete Mulheras Vivas, a sign that gender-based violence and femicide are at the center of national political attention. The protest reflects growing public demand for justice, legal reform, stronger protections for women, and a societal reckoning with violence against women in Brazil. Zainab Mohammed reporting for Beetv News.
In the early hours of Sunday, 7 December 2025, a small group of soldiers in Cotonou, the administrative capital of Benin, appeared on the state-run television network and announced they had seized power. They declared the dissolution of the government's institution, suspending the constitution, and reportedly closed the country's land, air, and sea borders. The group identified itself as the Military Committee for a Foundation, CMR, and named Pascal Tigri as head of the new military committee. The report.
Gunshot was heard in several neighborhoods across Cotonou, including near the official presidential residence. Foreign ambassadors, including that of France, issued security alerts. Within hours, the regular armed force of Benin loyal to the state mobilized and regained control. They re-established control over the state's television and radio, restored communications, and cleared the last pockets of resistance held by the mutineers, according to official sources. The country's Beninese armed force and its leadership affirmed their commitment to constitutional order and succeeded in thwarting the coup, as declared by the country's Alassane Seydou, the interior minister. On Sunday evening, about 12 hours after the first disruption, President Taylor addressed the nation publicly for the first time since the events began. He condemned the attempted coup, described the plotters as adventurers, and declared that this treachery will not go unpunished. He praised the armed forces for their loyalty and swift action. Taylor expressed condolences to victims of the upheaval and to people reportedly being held by the mutineers, promising that the government would make every effort to ensure their safe return. However, he did not provide casualty or hostage figures. According to officials and media sources, between 13 and 14 people, presumably the soldiers involved in the coup attempt, have been arrested. The status of the putative coup leader, Pascal Tigre, remains unclear. The attempted coup comes at a sensitive time. The country is preparing for a presidential election in April 2026, which is set to mark the end of Taylor's second and final term. Both the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) and African Union (AU) strongly condemned the coup attempt, calling it an unconstitutional attempt to subvert democratic governance. The event marks the first serious coup attempt in Benin since the country transitioned to multi-party democracy in 1991. Many viewed Benin as one of the most stable democracies in West Africa, a status now shaken by the event of 7th December. The attempt also deepens regional concern given the wave of coups and takeover attempts across West Africa in recent months in neighboring and regional countries. Analysts warn the incident underscores the fragility of democratic institutions in the region amid rising security and political tensions. Evelyn Isabella reporting for Beetv News.
On Sunday, Netanyahu said Israel and Hamas are very shortly expected to move into the second phase of the ceasefire, possibly by the end of the month, contingent on the return of the remains of the large hostage held in Gaza. Netanyahu made the remarks during a joint press conference with visiting chairman German Chancellor Merz, marking a tense but strategic pivot in the diplomatic engagement surrounding Gaza. The report.
The plan calls for Hamas to surrender or store its weapons effectively, ending its military capacity in Gaza. Israeli forces are to pull back from Gaza, reducing or ending a military presence inside the territory. An external internal security force is to be sent to secure Gaza once Israeli troops leave. A provisional administration will be established to handle Gaza's day-to-day governance under the supervision of an international board, reportedly under Donald Trump. According to Netanyahu, the return of the remains of the last hostage, a 24-year-old police officer killed during the October 7, 2023 attack, would complete the first phase of the broader truce plan. Netanyahu cautioned that while many doubted whether the first phase could succeed, and it did, the second phase would just be as challenging. There remain serious obstacles, according to Hamas. Some bodies of the fallen are still under rumble from Gaza's destruction, complicating the final handover of the remains. Israel has warned that delays may lead to renewed military operations or suspension of humanitarian aid. Another major uncertainty is how and whether dismantlement will occur, whether weapons will be handed over voluntarily, forcibly collected, or otherwise managed under international supervision. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has renewed warnings. The so-called yellow line dividing Israeli-controlled zones in Gaza from the rest has been described as a new borderline, meaning Israel plans to retain operational control over parts of the Strip for the foreseeable future. Chancellor Merz, visiting Israel for the first time as Germany's leader, told journalists that Berlin remains committed to Israel's security and would lend support to the second phase via diplomatic contributions and personnel to a US-led coordination center. At the same time, Merz stressed that Germany still considers a two-state solution the best path forward, though he indicated that recognition of a Palestinian Palestinian state should come at the end of the process, not at its start. The continued German support is notable given prior tensions over Israel's military conduct in Gaza, signaling a careful recalibration of Berlin's stance under the new ceasefire framework. Netanyahu, for his part, reiterated his opposition to establishing a Palestinian state now, arguing that past experience showed such a state would pose a threat to Israel. He framed any future political arrangements as distant security-driven matters rather than state building. Netanyahu said he will meet U.S. President Trump later this month, a meeting expected to shape final elements of the second phase's implementation timeline and structure. The success of the second phase dismantlement, withdrawal, stabilization depends heavily on the cooperation of Hamas, the timely return of hostage remains, and the effectiveness of international actors. Given deep mistrust, widespread destruction in Gaza, and competing political visions for Gaza's future, many analysts warn the transition may face major setbacks. Still, both Israel and Germany publicly insist on trying. They frame the second phase as essential for ending active conflict and setting Gaza on a path to stabilization, even if full normalization remains a distant contested goal. Temitakwe Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
And in business news, as the massive foreign exchange gains that banks enjoyed in the wake of the harmonization of the FX markets dry up, market watchers say lenders are actively seeking ways to open up other non-interest channels. Outlook projected by experts at Meriston Securities in their monthly banking sector highlights for November 2025. The report.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, weeks into his administration in 2023, harmonized segments of the FX market, which led to a significant depreciation in the value of the naira and resulted in a boon for banks in terms of FX revaluation gains. The National Assembly thereafter imposed a windfall tax following the amendment of the Financial Act 2023. Report says that 6 banks paid about 205.59 billion naira as windfall tax in the 2024 financial year. On the outlook for the banking sector, Meriston said as the 2025 FY period wraps up in December, we expect the pace of growth in banks' gross earnings to moderate further as the sector fully transitions into a normalized earning environment. Growth will, however, remain largely driven by interest income as bank continues to leverage the still high interest rate, NPR at 27.00%. The Group Managing Director of GTI Group, Abubakar Lawal, has said that Nigeria's aspiration to build a $1 trillion economy by 2030 will remain out of reach unless the Investments in Security Act 2025 is implemented with strict discipline, strategic coordination, and unwavering collaboration across the capital market ecosystem. Lawal said this at the 2025 Annual Conference of the Capital Market Correspondents Association of Nigeria in Lagos on Saturday. Report says that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu earlier this year signed the ISA 2025, which expanded the legal instruments that are tradable in the capital market with the recognition of digital assets and cryptocurrencies. Nigeria's 70% reliance on imported building materials is leaving the housing market dangerously exposed to crippling supply and currency shocks. The State of Lagos Housing Market Report Volume 3 has warned. According to the report, Nigeria's abundant raw materials still fall short of reducing reliance on imports due to limited local processing capacity. It stated a staggering 70% reliance on imported building materials exposes the market to global supply chain disruptions and currency volatility. Favour Kolawole reporting for Beetv News.
And on entertainment news, former Big Brother Naija star Queen Mercy Atang has spoken out to clear the air on several misconceptions surrounding her life, especially after news broke that her one-year marriage to David has reportedly ended. The report.
In a detailed Instagram post, Queen Mercy revealed that she has been subjected to harsh labels, with some people calling her everything from a prostitute to an unfit wife. She explained that she has reached a point where she can no longer stay silent while unfamiliar people create and spread false narratives about her. Queen expressed disbelief over claims circulating that some people in the US had called her degrading names. This made her question how some stories were formed by individuals who had neither met her nor interacted with her family. Daniela Okocha, the daughter of Nigerian footballer legend JJ Okocha, has set social media buzz after sharing elegant photos from her intimate engagement dinner, proudly showcasing a stunning engagement ring. The radiant bride-to-be took to Instagram on Sunday, December 7th, to share images capturing her joy during the milestone celebration with close friends and loved ones. Her exquisite ring immediately caught the attentions of fans. Dave Coulier, who announced last year that he has blood cancer, says he is also being treated for a second type of cancer. The Full House star disclosed his new diagnosis Tuesday on Today, saying he has an HPV-related oropharyngeal tongue cancer in October. Coulier announced in November 2024 that he has been diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The 66-year-old said his new cancer was discovered during a routine scan after going through several months of chemotherapy. And that's it on the entertainment news. Evelyn is even reporting for BTV News.
And lastly, on sports news, Mohamed Salah's place in Liverpool's travelling squad for Tuesday's Champions League meeting with Inter is in doubt, with club officials holding internal discussions following the forward's strong remarks earlier this week. According to Fabrizio Romano's ex-post on Monday, Mo Salah could be put out of Liverpool's squad set to travel to Italy to face Inter on Tuesday. Liverpool's boss Arne Slot is due to speak to the media later this afternoon, where he is expected to address the issue and provide clarity on Salah's status. So far, the Dutchman has remained tight-lipped as the club works to manage a delicate moment involving one of its most influential players. Liverpool are scheduled to travel to Italy later today ahead of their matchup at San Siro, but questions remain over whether Salah will be on the plane. And that will be all on our global news updates. Thank you for joining us. I am Librit Johanna. Bye for now.